February 28, 1986, 11:21 p.m. Stockholm. The snow glowed under yellow streetlights. A man and his wife walked home after a movie. No bodyguards, no escort, just the quiet of a late winter night. The man was Olof Palme, the Prime Minister of Sweden, one of the most recognizable faces in Europe. He laughed about the film, The Mozart Brothers, holding his wife Lisbeth's arm. They turned onto Sveavägen Street. And then, the impossible happened. A man stepped out from the shadows. A flash. One bullet struck Olof Palme in the back. He fell to the pavement, gasping once, eyes wide open. Another shot grazed Lisbeth. She screamed for help. Within minutes, the Prime Minister of Sweden, the man who shaped an entire era, lay dead on a cold city street. It was supposed to be an ordinary night. Instead, it became a national trauma. This assassination shattered Sweden's innocence, a country that believed such things only happened elsewhere. And yet, as of today, nearly 4 decades later, the case remains officially unsolved. More than 10,000 suspects, 134 confessions, dozens of conspiracy theories, and one haunting truth. The man who killed Olof Palme was never convicted. This is the story of how a single bullet destroyed the illusion of safety, consumed generations of investigators, and turned Sweden's greatest mystery into a question that may never be answered. Because in Sweden, even now, 39 years later, people still whisper, "Who killed Olof Palme?" Before we continue, this story is told with deep respect for the victims, their families, and the people whose lives were forever changed. All details are drawn from publicly available court documents, news archives, and verified journalistic investigations. This video makes no accusations beyond the official record. It exists to preserve memory, honor truth, and remind the world that some wounds never close until justice is found. If you value in-depth, fact-based storytelling about unsolved mysteries, subscribe to Vanished Voices. Each week, we uncover a case that history tried to bury, true crime with context, compassion, and careful research. Click subscribe now, and let's bring light to the world's forgotten stories together. Who was Olof Palme? To understand why his death still echoes, you need to know who he was, and why so many wanted him silenced. Olof Palme was born in 1927, in Stockholm, into an upper-class family. Educated, articulate, and idealistic, he could have lived a comfortable, apolitical life. But after studying in the United States, he returned with a conviction that Sweden, and the world, could be fairer. By 1969, he became Prime Minister. He wasn't just another politician, he was a lightning rod. Palme condemned the Vietnam War, calling U.S. bombings inhuman. He supported Cuba, criticized both the Soviet Union and America, and championed anti-apartheid movements in South Africa. He was a socialist, but not a puppet of Moscow. He argued for neutrality during the Cold War, but his Sweden became a moral voice louder than most superpowers wanted to hear. In the 1970s, he compared the U.S. bombing of Hanoi to Nazi atrocities. Washington froze diplomatic ties. In apartheid South Africa, his speeches inspired exiles and enraged white supremacists. In Chile, his voice echoed after Pinochet's coup, condemning fascism. He was bold, charismatic, unfiltered, and that made him enemies, from CIA corridors to right-wing Swedish extremists. By 1982, Palme was back in power after a short break. He pushed reforms for workers, healthcare, and global peace initiatives. But he also had critics at home, conservatives, business leaders, and members of the police and military who thought he was too soft on communism. He was a man admired by millions and despised by thousands. And yet, despite constant warnings, Olof Palme refused bodyguards off duty. He believed in open democracy. He believed Sweden was safe. But those ideals, that openness, may have made him a target. Because the man who believed he was untouchable was about to meet someone who didn't care. February 28, 1986. The night everything changed. It began like any Friday. Palme left work early. He spoke with friends, spent time with his family. At 8:30 p.m., he and Lisbeth met their son and his girlfriend at the Grand Cinema to see the Mozart Brothers. He told his security detail they could go home, a common gesture for him. He wanted to live as any Swede would. No guards, no armor, just freedom. After the film, around 11:15 p.m., they exited the theater. They chatted about the movie, laughed, and began walking down Sveavägen toward their apartment. The street was calm, lightly covered in snow. A man followed them. At 11:21 p.m., as they passed the corner near Tunnelgaten, he pulled out a revolver and fired 2 shots. The first hit Palme in the back, piercing his lung and spine. The second grazed Lisbeth's shoulder. Witnesses froze. One man ran to call the police. Another tried CPR. Palme died before an ambulance could arrive. Sweden's prime minister, a man who'd stood beside world leaders, was gone in seconds. Police arrived 10 minutes later. And from that moment, Sweden entered chaos. Because what came next was not just grief, it was confusion, failure, and decades of unanswered questions. The investigation was the largest in Swedish history. Over 10,000 people were questioned. Theories exploded. Journalists, politicians, and citizens demanded answers. But from the very beginning, the investigation stumbled. The crime scene wasn't sealed properly. Witnesses walked through the area. Vital evidence was lost. The murder weapon, a .357 Magnum revolver, was never found. Police faced overwhelming pressure. Within 2 years, they thought they had their man, Christer Pettersson. Pettersson was a petty criminal, alcoholic, and drug user, an easy target for public outrage. Lisbeth Palme identified him in a lineup. He was convicted in 1989, but there was a problem. There was no physical evidence. No gun, no fingerprints, no motive. Pettersson appealed and was acquitted that same year. The case collapsed, and with it, Sweden's confidence in its own justice system. From that point on, the investigation spiraled into legend. Theories multiplied faster than evidence. Some believed the CIA had ordered the hit, revenge for Palme's harsh criticism of U.S. foreign policy. Others pointed to the KGB, suggesting that Moscow wanted to destabilize Sweden's neutrality. Still others accused South Africa's apartheid regime, claiming Palme's anti-apartheid activism made him a threat to their survival. Then came the Kurdish connection, a theory that members of the PKK, Kurdistan Workers' Party, had targeted him after he denied them political asylum. That theory dominated Swedish headlines for years, but never produced proof. And beneath all of these global theories, a darker, more intimate suspicion grew. Could Palme's killer have been one of their own? Some Swedish police officers were known to hate Palme for his politics. Rumors of right-wing extremism within law enforcement began circulating. Witnesses claimed to have seen officers behave. For decades, Sweden wrestled with every possibility. The assassin could have been a lone man with a gun, or a pawn in a web that stretched across continents. Every few years, new breakthroughs emerged. Every few years, they dissolved. But in 2020, 34 years after the murder, the case finally reached its official conclusion. June 10, 2020, Sweden's chief prosecutor, Christer Pettersson, called a press conference. He announced that the investigation was being closed. The reason? They had identified the probable killer. His name was Stig Engström, known to the public as the Skandier Man. Engström worked at an office near the crime scene. He was among the first on site after the shooting. At least, that's what he told police. But over time, his story changed. His timeline didn't fit. Witnesses contradicted him. He claimed to have tried to help the victim, but no one remembered seeing him there. Investigators revisited his statements, his political leanings, his access to weapons. He matched witness descriptions of the shooter. He had motive. He despised Palme's politics. And he had opportunity. But there was one problem. Engström had died by suicide in 2000. He could no longer defend himself or be tried. The prosecution declared the case closed. No trial, no gun, no conviction, just a name and a nation divided. Palme's family publicly doubted the conclusion. Experts criticized the lack of physical evidence. To many Swedes, the closure felt like convenience, not justice. Why did it take 34 years to reach this point? Why accuse a dead man? And why did Palme refuse protection that night? Who knew he'd decided, spontaneously, to go to the cinema? Why did the police destroy crucial evidence in 1987? Where is the murder weapon, the Smith & Wesson .357 Magnum? Why did 134 people confess to a murder they didn't commit? And if Stig Engström really was the killer, why didn't anyone see him fire the gun? Every answer raises another question. Every theory leads to another dead end. Was it a political hit? A domestic extremist? A random loner? Or a perfect storm of chance, incompetence, and paranoia? Even now, new witnesses occasionally emerge. In recent years, journalists have uncovered forgotten files, inconsistent statements, even potential ballistic links. But none of it changes the official story. The Palme case is closed. Still, the truth doesn't feel finished. Because in Sweden, this case isn't just a crime. It's a mirror, reflecting everything the country wanted to believe about itself. A safe nation, a rational state, a people immune to violence. That illusion died with Olof Palme. If this story moved you, you're not alone. For almost 40 years, people around the world have searched for answers, debated suspects, and refused to let this case fade into silence. Here at Vanished Voices, we don't stop when the file is closed, because truth doesn't expire. Subscribe, share this video, and join the investigation. Your voice, your curiosity, keeps these stories alive. And maybe, one day, someone watching will notice the clue that everyone else missed. February 28, 1986. One shot changed Sweden forever. Olof Palme wasn't just a politician, and yet, his death proved that even the brightest ideals can be extinguished in a second of darkness. Will we ever know the full truth? Maybe not. But as long as we remember, as long as we keep asking who, why, and how, the case will never die. So tell me, who do you believe pulled the trigger that night? Stig Engström, the Scandier man? The CIA? A rogue police cell? Or someone we've never even heard of? Comment your theory below. Because every question, every doubt, keeps Olof Palme's story alive. This is Vanished Voices. We uncover what the world forgot. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and never stop asking questions.